You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Crumbs. I am your host, Andrea McCallum. I am an intuitive oracle card reader and energy healer. And today, as promised, we are talking about the sacral chakra with Chelsea Holman. Welcome, Chelsea.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because, as my listeners know, I've been trying to work on my feminine side and my sacral for so long, and it's just not working. So maybe you can give me some insights into how to start doing that.
I know, I feel like I could talk about this subject all day, so this is great.
I love it because my listeners are not going to hear much from me on this subject until I figure it out. So I'm sure we'll all benefit from this conversation. And I know because I know I have a lot of blocks around my sacral in different ways, like around femininity and just different things that I'm not connected to fully. And I was just wondering if you've experienced that in the past, any blocks around your sacral.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, honestly, the blocks in my sacral were the things that led me to deepening my connection with my sacral chakra, right? So I almost feel like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I am now, right?
That's great.
Yeah. So I can give you a little bit of backstory. So currently in my life, I feel very connected to my sacral chakra. But growing up, I was definitely like a free spirit. I was super creative. I loved dancing and singing. And even like in my early 20s, like I loved to dance and go to shows. That was like the highlight of my week. It was super important to me. And I was going to school, and I had all these great things going on, but I wasn't in my power, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Like I was doing what I thought others wanted me to do, and I felt like I was giving my power away.
I
Right?
totally relate. Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely cultural, especially for women.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and like yes, I had all these passions and things that I was working towards, but ultimately, I think the driving force was not really what I wanted, but I think what I thought that I needed to do. So once I graduated, it started to change. I ended up getting a job working 9 to 5 in a creative field in interior design. And it was something that I'd worked so hard for, and I had like painted this picture of like what it would be. And once I started working, I felt like everything in my life changed. I didn't have the same time for myself. I noticed that I had so much anxiety coming up, especially in my body. I was in a creative industry, but I didn't feel creative at all. It felt like I was like pulling teeth, right? To like
Yeah,
work on projects and things. And so it was like I was doing creative tasks, but it didn't feel like it was like creative from what I wanted to do, if that makes sense.
totally. 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't trade it for a thing. I know that, every piece led me to where I am now, but ultimately I was starting to feel it in my body. I had like constant knots in my stomach. I was overworking. I was like extremely in my masculine.
Mhm.
I was trying to overachieve and I guess do a really good job, right?
Yeah, totally. That's totally like the masculine, like I have to be productive in order to be valuable.
Yeah, and it was the thing where like, I was working so much that by the time that I got home, I didn't have enough energy to focus on things for myself, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was like doing the things I loved, like dancing or drawing or going to a show. I was just so burnt out and I was completely out of balance. And from there, I remember I went to a counselor, and I remember the first visit he offered me medication.
Of
And I
course.
have nothing, I know, and like I have nothing against medication. I think it's a great But at the same time, I was like, I know this isn't the first step, right? And then
Yeah.
so I also went to a doctor because the anxiety was so bad I couldn't eat. I was feeling it so physically in my body. I
Wow.
felt like I had weights around my like ankles and my
Oh my
wrists.
gosh.
Like it wasn't like I was depressed, but my body was speaking. My body was yelling at me. Like
Wow.
and I remember going to the doctor because I thought that I had asthma because I was having all of these physical symptoms in my body. And I asked him, he diagnosed me with having asthma. And I said, could this be related to anxiety? And he was like, I don't know. And I just had a feeling it was all interconnected.
Mhm.
So I was talking to a friend and I told her what I was experiencing. And she was like, Chelsea, you should go see my friend, Destiny. She's this amazing healer and she does body work. And that was the beginning. That literally, I look back, was the first, well, I think my body speaking to me was the first spirit crumb. And then
Yeah.
this was the second, right? It was like
Yeah.
the beginning of the journey. So I met with Destiny, and the first second I walked in, she's very psychic and intuitive. And she was like, Chelsea, she's like, you are sensitive.
Oh,
And when she
wow.
said that, it's like my whole world flashed, like my whole life flashed before my eyes and everything made sense.
Wow.
And I just remember crying and having such a release because it was almost like someone saw me for who I was. But not only that, everything made sense, right? And she was doing body work on me and she said that my soul did not have enough space in my body.
Wow. What an incredible phrase. Such
Yes,
a succinct way of putting that.
I know. And in that
Wow.
moment, I visualized my soul kind of in my solar plexus region, but just like stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like trapped in the rib cage.
Yes. Yes. And it was such like a simple thing to say, but it was so powerful. And I still think about it all the time. Like that right there was the information I needed. And from that point on, it was like I remember I would see her regularly. I remember that was the beginning of my embodiment journey. And I remember that I looked back and like it was almost like this fire was lit inside of me. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. Like my soul came here to live. Like it can't
Yeah.
be trapped. And I just had this like, I need to live my life.
I can totally relate to that because I had that inner it was like an inner anger where my body and my soul was just like, why are you not listening? Like, get your shit together. And I was just like, I don't know what that means. And then it's just such a frustrating point to be in.
I know. And it's funny because I mean, oftentimes I feel like we have to kind of hit those like rock bottoms to realize how real it is, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I appreciate that part of your journey and like being open to like go to a healer and be like, okay, well, obviously doctors are not helping and counselors are not helping, so I will literally try anything. And then of course the option, like you said, the spirit crumb that comes from someone else is like often what is like the catalyst for something because it's something outside of yourself that you wouldn't have thought of, right?
Yes. I
I
literally think, yeah, it was all divine timing. Like I don't think it was an accident that I that I went and saw her for energy work at all. It was the catalyst for sure. And I think it is good to, like go see doctors and counselors, but I I think having this like holistic side as well was really important to my journey.
Yeah, I feel like that's for me as well. Like since I've been doing my own like energy work and stuff, I've been more connected to my body
Yeah.
because of that, because I'm actually tuning into my own energy instead of completely giving my power away. Like you were saying before, like giving your power away is like the worst way to live because then you're not living from the inside out, you're living from the outside in. And then that feels like stagnant energy because it's not
Yes.
your own.
I know, especially as like sensitives and mediums and empaths, like I think everyone's sensitive, right? But to
Mhm.
to an extent, I mean, those of us who like, I feel like I feel like once I started practicing mediumship, it was like everything in my life made sense. It was like, oh my God, I've been picking up people's energies subconsciously my entire life, right? And it's
Yes.
like until you learn that and kind of learn those boundaries and things, it's yeah, it's
It's a
heavy.
process. Yeah, it can be a lot. And then I like how that was what led you to the healing journey. But how would you say you started to actually bring your sacral chakra back into alignment after you figured out where the source was?
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't an overnight process. And I'm still going through it, right? Every
Hmm.
day I'm
Yeah.
still growing and coming back into my body. But it was like baby steps. It was the spirit crumbs. And I've been like, my guides have been telling me one step in front of the other, right? Like, you
Yeah.
don't need to see where you're going, just keep taking one step and follow the things that you feel pulled to. So I started going to yin yoga because it really helped with my like anxiety, calming my nervous system. And I loved it so much because yin yoga, it's like the feminine side of yoga, right? It's the yin and yang.
Yeah.
It's you're holding poses in stillness for up to like 5 minutes at a time, right? And you're
Wow.
breathing and you're just kind of meditating in your stillness. And to me, it was so powerful just to slow down.
You know
And
what? Just sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, but I actually just had a spirit crumb when you said that because I have been trying to think of the word stillness keeps coming to
yeah,
me as like a feminine thing. And yesterday I had a reading with Jane, and the first card that she pulled was the yin card and connecting to the feminine. And you just said yin yoga. And it was like, boom,
yep,
like in my brain, like, oh, that would be the perfect way to connect to my feminine and movement and stillness, like all at once to try and like do something different.
yeah. And I feel like too, especially something like yin yoga, where you're in a pose and maybe you have music playing. Like to me, I enjoy I enjoy that more than like traditional meditation because to me it felt like more of like a full body experience, right? If that not that
Yeah.
meditation's not, but to me it felt like I was activating parts of my body physically as
Yeah.
well, which I really liked too. Yeah.
I
So
love that.
the yin yoga was like definitely the beginning of connecting back into my body. And I loved it so much I began um, I became certified to teach.
Oh,
And I
wow.
started teaching, yeah, my friends and others in the group. And I really started to, build that confidence in teaching and healing myself. And I loved allowing space for others to also come into this like very healing, calm, feminine state of mind and feeling, right? So from
That's really
there,
beautiful.
yeah, it was really great. It's funny because I look back and it was not that long ago. It was only like a year ago, right?
Wow.
But um, it was definitely the beginning of my journey of just coming back to my body. And from there, I just felt this pull. I felt like there's more to life. There's more I need to be doing with my life. After I started teaching, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do, right?
Yeah.
And my friend Sage, she's an amazing hypnotherapist. She literally like working with her changed my life.
Wow.
So I followed the pull. I kind of was listening to the one step in front of the other, and wherever my heart felt pulled to, I would go.
I
So
love that.
so I started doing hypnosis with her. And through the hypnosis, essentially purging layers of conditioning or limiting beliefs and removing blocks, right?
Wow.
And doing a lot of like past life regression work.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes.
That is like such a fascinating thing in itself because it's something that you would never know in this lifetime unless you find some way of pulling it out.
I know. Well, and I feel like we all know, but it's
Yeah.
like the act of making the space for you to remember, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. And it was actually in the past life regression work that I realized that I was a medium because it was such a powerful experiences. And um, literally the past life regression changed my life. And I was able to remember who I was. I was able to see why I'm here. I was able to see, certain blocks or things that are keeping me from living in my most authentic self. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so really just like shedding all these layers and coming back to who I was. And I was working with all these healers. I was working with all these friends. And one of my friends, Natalie, she was like, Chelsea, you're so in your masculine, right?
Mm.
Because I was doing all this work, but I was still super in my masculine. And I was like doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Can relate.
And she was like, Chelsea, you should just like dance. And like I give all my credit to Natalie, my friend Nat, because if it wasn't for her, I don't know if I'd be dancing right now as much as I
Wow.
am. Yeah. So I remember coming home and I was like, all right, I'm just going to dance. And it was in that moment that I turned on music and I started dancing and I was like alone in my room. And it brought me back to when I used to dance as a kid.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
And I felt completely in my soul. I felt completely like this huge connection to my soul and my heart. And it was all just like completely in unison, working as one when I moved and danced.
That is
Um,
incredible.
yeah. And so I just made it my practice. I just started practicing, and every day I would come back to my dance, even if it was just for 10 minutes. Right. And my whole world started to change. Like I started to when I danced, it was like I fully surrendered and I fully surrendered to the experience. And I wasn't like dancing to look good or dancing to like, there was no like motive besides connection to myself. And it was like in that surrender, it opened up space
Yeah.
in my body.
That's
Yeah.
so
And that was, yeah.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like an inner child connection as well. It's like connecting you to like your soul and your inner child and your past life,
Yes.
like all of that at once. Like that's so powerful.
It's so true. And so true. And then, my mediumship just started unfolding through dance. I started having past life visions. I started having experiences with guides. Um, and I don't know if you're familiar with Kali, the Hindu goddess Kali.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have actually been like kind of like working with her off and on around
Yes.
this stuff. So I love that you also have that connection.
So there's Spirit Crumb.
Yeah.
So Kali was coming through really strong, like this energy, this powerful goddess energy. And like Kali, like I'm just gonna say it, she to me is like the fullest embodiment of like divine feminine. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like she's
Yes.
just like doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like she was helping me. I feel like it was like I was tapping into this part of myself and she was guiding me as well, right? And
Wow.
because I made space for it, that she was starting to come through. And it's really where my mediumship journey began, realizing that, started opening up this connection to the spirit world. And from there, having really intense past life visions um, of dancing in past lives and connecting with my higher self, always dancing. Like when I visualize my higher self, I'm always dancing. It's
Oh, I love that. What a great
yeah.
energy to tap into.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, obviously this movement is innate within my soul. This is why I'm getting so much joy out of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I love
Yeah.
that.
And for me, like movement was like my gateway into tapping into my sacral chakra. But for someone else, that could be something different, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
This
for
is
sure.
like just one way, right? But to me, it's like one of the most powerful ways. is
I love
embodiment.
that. Definitely like when you're fully feeling in your body and like
Yeah.
movement, flow, surrender, that's all feminine. And so that makes so much sense why surrendering to just dancing for yourself and not having an outcome, because that would make it more masculine if you're like trying
Yeah.
to do, if you're trying to dance really well, that's not
Yes.
feminine.
Yes.
Opposite, like competitive dance, like completely different. So I really love that you allowed that to be such a like feminine way of connecting with yourself, and then how that actually opened up your spiritual journey as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it did require me to be super vulnerable because like dancing alone, no one's watching you,
Yeah.
but you're being vulnerable with yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember dancing in front of the mirror and just looking at myself and like that connection to myself of just like being super vulnerable and moving my body in ways and shapes that maybe looked different or maybe was like, "Whoa, that's what is that?" But just
Yeah.
being so vulnerable to what wanted to flow through me was really powerful. And I felt like it was a way for me to, as a sensitive person, really move energy through my body and release energy and clear energy, but also come back to myself and transmute feelings as well.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Cause like we always say, like to move energy, but like physically moving it. I know I've said that in terms of like for me, if I do a meditation or energy work, I have to get up and walk around. That's also when I connect to my guides. Like when I'm walking around, like I'll be sitting in a meditation forever and be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not really getting anything. And as soon as I stand up and go to like make coffee or something, they're like, download, download, download. And it's
Yes.
like, yeah, it's like I totally like that really resonates with me as well. The idea of movement being a form of
Yeah.
connection, because
Yeah.
it is a vibration where you are moving energy and surrendering to that.
Yeah. Totally. It is. It's those moments of surrender, like when you're in the shower.
Yeah, exactly. Shower thoughts where you're
Shower
just like,
thoughts.
why am I a genius when I'm in here and I have no paper? I need to put like a whiteboard in the bathroom or something.
I looked that up actually. They make those. They make like shower like papers, like notebooks that you can put on the shower wall.
Okay, I may have to invest in one because I also definitely, and it's water too, right? Because water has that like sacral flow as well, right? So it's like two things
Yes.
at once. You're surrendering because you're just doing something that's like movement, but it's natural. You're not thinking about it. And then
Yes.
also having the water flowing over you. It's like double impact of like feminine. So that makes so much
I
sense.
know. Yeah, the showers for me are like rituals. Just so everyone knows, I whenever I shower, I'm dancing.
I love that.
It's so funny. It's like my time. I shower in the morning and I shower at night. It's like my ritual to just like dance and cleanse. And it's in the shower so many. So it's in the shower that like I did connect with like my grandmother in
Wow.
spirit, and she is Persian and she and I never met.
Oh,
And she is also a dancer. And so I
wow.
think that it's in my Persian heritage. Like they lived a very nomadic lifestyle and they danced and, like that was her medicine. And
Yeah.
so it's like I have this connection to dance and I'm finding that the way that I'm moving my body, it's very like the I don't know how to explain it. It's like the forms are very it's almost innate. It's like I remember without having to be shown.
Wow.
Yeah, and I started watching myself dance and I was like would watch like Persian dancers and I was like, wow, I'm doing the same movements that they are. Or I would look back on like ancient Egyptian dance and I'm like, wow, I'm literally doing this. And it was almost like this sense of remembering.
I
And it
love
was
that.
like, yeah. And so through that, I remembered who I was on like a soul level. And then that allowed me to step further into my power.
Yes, I love that. And then in terms of like stepping into your power, was that more like spiritual gifts as well, like different forms of like connection that you were starting to form?
Yes. So, and again, this all didn't happen overnight. It just kind of
Yeah.
unfolded, right? And I was thinking about it this morning. It's still unfolding, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so when I would dance and I started doing a practice where I dance in the morning or after work, either before or after. And from there, I would go into these trance states where
Oh.
if I wanted to,
Yeah.
right? If I wanted to, I would just like completely surrender and go into this trance like state. And I have been working with my friend Natalie for the past probably year. She does light language healing. And I don't know if you're familiar with light language.
I'm familiar, but I feel like a lot of my listeners may not be. So it'd be great if you could give like a brief overview of
Okay.
what that entails.
So light language is essentially, it's like a universal language that we all know how to speak. And I say speak like not everyone speaks it, but some people speak it, some people sing it, some people embody it through movement or mudras or drawing. And essentially, it's like this universal language that is felt through love and like your heart space. And I could go more into detail,
Yeah.
but it's almost like this really healing energy that flows through, and it's like medicine, right? And so I've been attending like her light language session, healing sessions for probably a year now. And it wasn't until I started dancing and going to these trance states that I noticed that I started channeling light language myself. And dance was the real thing that really brought me into my sacral, but it really also brought me into my heart space.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And I feel like this light language really comes through my heart. And it kind of, I'm in this trance where I just start moving my body and my hands, and I don't know what's going to come through, but I just let it flow. And from there, literally, it's been the most healing, powerful experience of my entire life. And I, you know, people have like addictions.
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, am I addicted to this?
I feel like of all the addictions you could possibly have, that's probably literally the best one.
I know, because it's like it just feels so good, and it feels so healing and so powerful and so like from the soul. So I feel like, it's like starting to open up all these doors, starting to open up these channels, and having this like awakening through movement, through my solar plexus, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you've really started to connect the chakras, and like they've all like now you have that free flow of energy because you've opened up and surrendered
Yeah.
to like whatever comes on your path. I think that's like
Yeah.
so incredible because I think like you've said before, like even following the spirit crumbs, when you get led to something, you're like, there's a reason for this. And you just have that open curiosity to just kind of follow it and trust it. And I
Yeah.
think trust is a big part of that too, like just trusting that it's part of your path.
Yes. And trusting that I don't have to have it all figured out, because that definitely, I used to struggle with that. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
we try to have like a plan, or we like to feel a sense of control. And it's really vulnerable to just allow things to flow and not know where you're going to go. But you
Yeah.
have a feeling that where you're going is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is I'm just starting to get to that point where I know I need to let go of my masculine because that's what stops me. Like it's like almost like I have a logical knowing that I can let go and that it will turn out, but like my feminine won't, like my masculine won't take the rein, like give back the reins and be like, okay,
Yeah.
passing it over to my feminine guide now. And like, now it's her turn.
Yeah.
And like, that's the transition that I feel like I'm making. So that resonates so
Yeah.
deeply when you say that, like not needing to know where you're going, not needing to know the
Yeah.
outcome, just trusting like the process, which is so
Yeah.
feminine. I really love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I feel like that is the sacral chakra, is like I feel like sacral chakra is feminine energy. It's like vulnerability and courage and empowerment and sensuality
Yes.
and like creativity and just like flow. And it's like, you know, me telling my story about how I got back in touch with my sacral chakra, but like maybe someone else's story is different, right? But that's what's really cool is we each have these unique like passions and like abilities or things that we bring with, right? Because if everyone was the same, that would be
That would be actually frightening if everybody was the same. It was like a textbook, like this is exactly what you will feel or like hear when you connect to your sacral chakra. And then it wouldn't be a journey. It would just be like following the process. It'd be like a step-by-step manual. And like, who wants to do that when it's like, you could have this flowy experience instead and like open up. Do you have like a certain way that you would describe like what your sacral chakra means to you now after getting to this point in your journey?
Yeah. I was like, I feel like my sacral chakra is my everything, but then I think about all my chakras. I'm like, no, they're all working together. But it's my compass. It's like it helps direct me where to go, right? Like those feelings of anxiousness physically manifested in my sacral chakra.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of tension, the feeling of butterflies in my stomach, the constant knot, that was in my sacral. And like when my sacral feels like that, I know to listen and I know something's not right. And so when it feels calm, I know that I'm in alignment, right?
Yeah.
So definitely it's like my compass through navigating life. And it kind of guides me to like what urges or spirit crumbs to explore. And so it's like it speaks to me through this tension and comfort, right? And like the tension to me isn't bad. It's just like it's speaking to me, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part. And then also, you know, it's it's connected me to myself, but it's connected me to this divine feminine goddess energy, which I feel
Yes.
like is like the sacral is like it's that divine feminine energy. And this to me is it's where my heart is. Like I think it's where a lot of the work that I'm going to be doing is this feminine is helping others, men and women, come back,
Mm.
kind of rebalancing, right?
Yeah,
Feminine aspect.
definitely.
And there's so much trauma and things that need to be worked through regarding like divine feminine, and it's not something that can be worked through overnight. It's not, it's just
No,
something I've been able to start working through and harnessing this femininity through my sacral.
that's
So yeah.
that's really beautiful. I think that that's such a good point too, that it's men and women. It's everyone has to have a
It's
balance between their
everything.
masculine and feminine. Because like I said, I identify as female, but I have such strong double Capricorn masculine energy. So
Yeah.
like everyone can benefit from that type of
Yeah.
healing and connecting to the sacral. And I think it's important to note that you did say that that's where you feel you're being led. That's your compass. You know
Yeah.
that creativity and femininity is what drives you. It's what's
Yeah.
important to you. It's what like
Yeah.
your soul is meant to do in this lifetime. I think that's so beautiful to know that and to trust those feelings. And you know them now because you've paid attention to your body and you know what that feels like now. So you can recognize it when it comes up.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And just as men and women, but I feel like especially as women, I just want to say this, that our sacral is very sensual, and don't be scared of that sexuality, because I think that it's very linked to our spiritual nature and our soul. And I think that the sacral is my connection to my soul. Well, same with my heart. It's all connected, but it's like it's powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point because I feel like women are so afraid to connect to their sexuality because there's so much trauma around like different things that come up where like women are seen in a certain way. If they're very sexual, then they're
Yeah.
seen as like a negative thing. And it's like society says like, we're not supposed to be overtly sexual. We're not supposed to share that with people. That's supposed to be like private, and like no one's supposed to know that you feel these things. And I think that in terms of like connecting to that energy, that dance is a very good way to start connecting back into that and feeling that through your body.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point to make, because I think a lot of people avoid that part of the healing. And so they do this creativity work, they do like painting, and they try different things, but then they're still just like, why is this not balanced?
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, it's all connected. And it's true, And I am a very visual person too, like especially as a designer and like the creative parts, like I love blending the two, right? So for me, dance and like putting myself out there, whether it's on Instagram or whatnot, I feel like it's an artistic expression of my sacral chakra. You
I
know what I
love
mean?
that. And I definitely feel that as well, because like I'm an artist, like a visual artist, and like I just finished school for that. And so like I feel like that. And what's funny is my intro into creativity, into studio art, was that I was trying to come up with a practical way to do art in school. And I started in human design, sorry, not human design, in interior design. And I
Okay.
actually transferred into studio art because my teacher was like, you're not going to like this being on the computer, like doing AutoCAD for 4 years. Like you need to be doing hands-on like studio art, because that's all you're doing. It's just like I had a 6-week project. We were supposed to design a gallery space for 1 or 2 artists. And most people were, after the first week, they were like, okay, I have my artist research done. And they were doing all the details of like the plans and everything. And I was still like doing the artist research, finding what works I wanted to include. I was making sculptures for walls, and he's just like, you're not going to do this. Like, this is not going to work for you, because you just want to make the actual art. Like, you don't want to make the building. You want to make the art
Yeah.
that goes in the gallery.
Well, and that's good that you found out sooner than later.
Yeah. And well, and the thing is, like now my final project for my, like, I didn't talk about my spiritual stuff a lot at all, really, at school, unless there was like particular people that I felt like were interested in that. But my final project for my printmaking course, because I was doing the final module, like the capstone course, was taking my Reiki sessions, getting feedback from people of what they saw, felt, experienced, and making prints with watercolor based on those. And so I love that you say the same thing about your dance, how sharing that with people is a way of bringing the spiritual energy out into the open, where other people can experience and be inspired by it. And that's exactly where I feel I ended up at the end of my journey through school, was connecting the two and realizing, oh, there's a reason I was meant to do both of these things simultaneously at this point in my life. And I think that's such a thing that brings us together.
Yes.
In that moment when you decide to share that with others.
Yeah. It's coming from that space exactly of wanting to share, because when I share something, I'm not coming at from a point of ego. I'm coming from a point of empowerment, of wanting to empower other people to also feel this, to also see this, and to also just like it's like you want to inspire people to feel the same, right? Because you're
Yeah.
like, this is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that feminine sharing community, like,
Yes.
the everybody, that's how the feminine is like community based. It's like wanting to have relationships and connections. And I totally feel like that's where I'm starting to feel that energy build. But I think the movement is key. I think that's such an important thing. I'm so glad that we had this conversation, because I think finding the right movement practice for me is going to be really important, because obviously all of the logical things and like the ways I'm trying to go through it, like I'm trying to access my feminine through the masculine. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. Like I'm never going to get there. It's never going to happen. So I really love, actually, for anybody listening, Chelsea and I never met before today, literally. So the fact that we have so much overlap in like our journeys, and I love that you're like so much further ahead than me in this, because it's an insight that I can't really give, but I know it's so important for people to hear that perspective and to start healing their sacral, because the divine feminine is rising. We all, as you said, all people need to start working on that and really honoring it as part of your innate being as a human. Like
Yeah.
we need to have that connection.
Yeah, no, we know each other already, but we haven't
Yes.
formally met.
Yeah. It's like we've been in each
Like,
other's energy. And it's like we like there was a remembering. Like I said, I just knew you had to come on for the sacral. I had no idea any of like your journey, anything. I was just like, I actually watching one of your light language like mudra videos, I was like, that was the energy where I was like, yes, this is exactly what I need. And it's just that remembering again. It's always just remembering.
Yeah. And you mentioned like the feminine is she's waking up. Like I literally feel it. I feel like like we're going through like a rebalance and it's awakening. And so there's so many people who are starting to experience these things now, and it's so powerful. So yeah, if we just, I think just keep talking about it and shedding light on it, because it's so important.
It definitely is. I so appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this. Where can people find you to follow you in your journey and see where it takes you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at CM Holman. And I am in the process of, I feel like something wants to be birthed through me.
Yeah.
So I see myself holding like retreats and doing like embodiment classes and coaching. And so I am in the future going to be putting something out there. So if you want, you can follow me on Instagram, follow my dance journey.
Yeah.
And see how things unfold.
I love that. Yeah, definitely follow Chelsea. It is magical to watch her dance. And I think you'll be so inspired to start connecting to your own sacral chakra. And I hope that you loved this episode as much as I did. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, Chelsea.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.